All right, we be live. Apparently, we're not on live on Twitch. We're live on YouTube, but Twitch is not liking the title. Okay, so now I changed the title. See if Twitch likes it now. Okay, we're now live. So I think Twitch did not like this title, did not let us go live. Now we can go live on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter at the same time. Let me know how my audio is. Let me actually see if you guys can hear me. Let me know if you have my audio. Let me know that you're liking the stream, please. Let me actually check. Somebody confirm in the live chat that we have audio. Fantastic. Yes. Thank you guys for yeah, we have audio. Fantastic. Okay, good. Let's do this right away. I want to get into this. Guys, please make sure you like the stream. Again, a lot of our videos are getting deprioritized because of the nature of the topic that we're discussing here. So I need you all on YouTube to like the stream, and I need everybody else that is watching this on Twitter or somewhere else to come on YouTube and subscribe to Atheist Republic on YouTube and like the stream over there. Hi, guys. And Alfred, thank you so much, Alfred. Alfred is highlighting your comments on YouTube so that this way it's not just my opinions. Your opinions are also getting shared. So thank you so much, Alfred, for your service, for highlighting people's comments. And also thank you so much for Dolly for preparing this stream. So let's get right into this. I'm going to show you the clip. The clip is going to explain what the hell we're talking about here, so I don't have to. And then we get to, I'll show you some other clips. And then at the very end, there's a debate, the 2015 debate between Trudeau and Harper that we're going to talk about, because that's basically the whole point of me showing you what's happening here. So let's listen to this news item. 1 second.
The RCMP says an attack was imminent.
On July 28, 2024, GTN arrested a father and son at a hotel in Richmond Hill who were in the advanced stages of planning a serious, violent attack in Toronto.
The men were arrested at this hotel, according to investigators. The RCMP wouldn't say who exactly was the target of the planned attack. The men both live in this rented Toronto home and face 9 terrorism-related charges, including conspiracy to commit murder for the benefit or at the direction of a terrorist group, namely the Islamic State or ISIS. And according to court documents, the father was also charged with a 2015 assault on behalf of ISIS outside of Canada.
We were not really aware of these individuals.
Sources tell CBC News the father and son filmed a video pledging allegiance to ISIS in front of an ISIS flag while holding an axe and a machete. Authorities say the pair were arrested less than a month after appearing on their radar.
To make an arrest like this just a few weeks later suggests that the information they had was pretty solid.
At the LDD home Wednesday, few answers.
No English, sorry. No English.
Neighbors had seen police around the house over the last few days.
There were tenants there, so who moved in very recently, like about a year and a half.
They don't talk to anybody.
The RCMP originally said both men were Canadian citizens, but later backtracked, telling CBC News that only the father is a citizen. Experts say we need to know more about the men's links to ISIS.
In particular, in relation to that 2015 charge, were these individuals who were based in Canada and then traveled overseas, engaged with a terrorist entity, and then came back and then later mobilized, a few years later. That's very dangerous.
Both men are being held pending a bail hearing. Police say there's no further threat to public safety. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
All right. So the good thing is that the Canadian intelligence agencies are, doing a good job stopping this from happening. But the main thing that is blowing people's minds is how do people like this get citizenship in Canada? And I tell you why that's just the tip of the iceberg and why this is a much bigger problem than a lot of people are realizing. And again, when I go back to 2015 and I show the debate, a part of the debate between conservative Harper, and I know a lot of you are telling me that, okay, you don't understand Canadian politics. Okay, you don't need to know much, okay? Trudeau right now, Prime Minister, Liberal Party, the previous Prime Minister, Harper, he was from the Conservative Party. He lost, Trudeau won. So now we have, 9 years Liberals in power. So we will take a look at what's happening right now, and why I will explain to you why this is a much, much bigger problem than just one ISIS member. And I also will explain by showing you that part of the debate between Trudeau and Harper why this is a fundamental discussion about what it means to be a citizen in the modern liberal state, and why this is the definition of citizenship. Both sides are getting this wrong, and the problem is demonstrated in a few seconds between the debate between Harper and Trudeau, which we'll get to, right? So now you see this attack was being planned, and now the question of citizenship, why these people are getting citizenship, is being questioned. So I will show you another clip. So we're building up our case to get to the final point, right? So let's watch this one. Hold on. So let's watch this one.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us. There are more questions than answers tonight about a Toronto man accused of plotting a terror attack in the name of the so-called Islamic State, and how he was able to immigrate to Canada. Critics are calling it a failure in border security. Our Ottawa Bureau Chief Mercedes Stevenson joins us now. Mercedes, what have we learned?
Neithu, the federal government is refusing to explain how a Toronto man was able to immigrate to Canada despite allegedly having taken part in ISIS violence overseas in Iraq before he moved to Canada. Ahmed Fouad Mustafa El-Didi is facing multiple terror charges in relation to a planned machete and axe attack in Toronto. El-Didi was also charged with aggravated assault on behalf of the so-called Islamic State, which the RCMP say took place abroad in 2015. Violence that multiple national security sources say was in part documented in an ISIS propaganda video released in 2015 showing the torture and dismemberment of an ISIS prisoner by a middle-aged man with a sword. Global News has viewed the video that multiple national security sources say is believed to show El-Didi hacking off a prisoner's hands and feet while the man is tied to a crucifix in the desert. Global News is not showing the video due to its graphic content and is not identifying the sources who spoke to us who have direct knowledge of the investigation but are not authorized to speak publicly. Ahmed El-Didi was also arrested along with his son Mustafa in a Richmond Hill hotel. Sources say they had just finished taping a so-called martyrdom video in which they appeared with an axe and a machete as well as an ISIS flag.
All right, so here they're saying they just migrated to Canada, but it gets worse. Okay, now we have citizenship to worry about as well. So again, I'm building. We're building a case one by. I'm sure. We saw the terrorist attack, the planned terrorist attack that failed. We saw the background of these people. The question is how they came to Canada, and now it keeps getting worse. So hold on.
So Mercedes, what does this seem to say about the immigration system?
Well, a lot of questions being raised. We still don't know how or when El-Didi came to Canada because the federal government is citing privacy in court proceedings, refusing to release that information. We did learn that the RCMP got one thing wrong. El-Didi's 26-year-old son, Mustafa, is not a Canadian citizen, as they had stated. Kelly Sundenberg is an immigration enforcement officer who is now retired and become a professor. He says this case is deeply concerning and not the first time security screening in immigration has failed.
So the son is not a citizen, right? So the son is not a citizen, but the father is. Hold on.
Didi's 26-year-old son, Mustafa, is not a Canadian citizen, as they had stated. Kelly Sundenberg is an immigration enforcement officer who is now retired and become a professor. He says this case is deeply concerning and not the first time security screening in immigration has failed.
This is yet another alarm bell going off about the woeful lacking border security we have in our country.
Sundenberg says the system is under-resourced and that there's a lack of political will to fix it.
There's a lot of people who could have lost their lives because of politicking, and that should really alarm Canadians.
The Conservative opposition is calling for the government to disclose what happened in this case.
We need to know how somebody came into the country after being depicted on camera, allegedly doing unspeakable acts. And then we have other questions. How did this person get citizenship?
And how is this person not on national security sources' radar before the beginning of July, Neithu, which is when the RCMP said they first became aware of the concern? So lots of questions for the government here in Ottawa about our security.
Indeed, there are. All right, Mercedes Stevenson in Ottawa. Thanks, Mercedes.
So you heard about the citizenship. That's the main issue. So Arthur is saying exactly this. It's a security screening issue. The security screening, I know that's the main thing that gets highlighted, But I want people to understand that even though that gets the most attention, that is only one of the major problems. And this is why I do these shows, because a lot of people focus on the security threat and they don't understand that the entire pillars of their nation state is being eroded. There's much more at stake here than people understand. It's not just a matter of security. It's not just a matter of security. Again, these are, if let me actually go to the next video and I'll explain, right? So first we had the security issue that was stopped. Now we have, how are these people even coming to Canada? Now let's focus on the citizenship. So let's look at this video.
Last week, Canadians were shocked and outraged to learn of a foiled terrorist attack in Canada.
July 28th, 2024, GTN set arrested a father and son who were in the advanced stages of planning a serious, violent attack in Toronto.
Justin Trudeau's government allowed someone with connections to ISIS, someone who participated in a gruesome and horrific torture video, to come into Canada. Not only that, not only was he allowed into Canada, but the Trudeau government granted him citizenship just a short while after he participated in these gruesome crimes.
The men plan to use an axe and a machete to carry out an ISIS terror attack. Sources describe the plot as a mass casualty attack, meaning police had to move fast.
I don't want to say imminent, as again, it's within an hour or two, but it was close.
Canadians have a right to know. Is anybody else in Canada who has connections with ISIS? Is there anybody else who was granted citizenship who participated in a gruesome and horrific torture video? Conservatives are calling for a full parliamentary investigation at the Public Safety Committee. And up until now, the NDP and Bloc don't want to leave their summer vacations and come back to Ottawa to do the work Canadians expect of them. This is about the very safety of our country, the ability for people to go to work and live their lives without fear of being killed in a terrorist attack. We're calling on the Bloc and NDP to join our demands. If they support our demand, then that investigation will proceed. Enough's enough. Canadians have a right to know, what the heck is Justin Trudeau doing with our national security system?
So, by the way, the reason why it sounds like this is because this had audio, this had music, and I had to remove the music with AI. That's why it sounds so weird. The audio is not my fault. But again, this is not just a matter of security. And I think a lot of people, scaring people about their security is the best way to get them concerned and want to do something. But again, remember, if people who just tortured and dismembered other people and have pledged allegiance to ISIS are getting through the filters and coming into Canada, and not only coming to Canada, after coming there, getting Canadian citizenship, to me, that shows, what does that show? Because this plan was foiled, like they stopped it. Nobody was hurt, okay? The intelligence operations managed to do its thing and stop them. To me, what hasn't been stopped is, for every one person that has these views, there are tens or hundreds of thousands of other people who are not as barbaric, but are just below it enough to be able to get in and become citizens without any way to stop them. Do you understand what I'm saying? So a terrorist attack is devastating, but it is not targeting. It's the cost to that is a couple of people's lives, which is tragic, but if the foundation of your society and the values that made your country great, if that is targeted, then the cost to people's lives are a lot more significant. But because there are no dots that you could connect, because it's much more complicated, if you cannot pay your hospital bills, if you have a lower quality of life, if you have to work extra hard and you don't have time to go run or read a story to your child before she falls asleep, because you don't have time, because you have to wake up earlier in the morning, the cost of these compiles together so much and has a compounding effect. More people will end up dying because of that, because your society's foundation, the Western liberal way, is being targeted. And again, when you see a terrorist becoming a citizen, that means, to me, that's an indication that a lot of other people with inferior values, many thousands and thousands of other people who are not pledging allegiance to ISIS, who don't have videos of dismembering people, who have inferior values, but they have all the requirements to become Canadian citizens. If this person is getting in, then a whole bunch of they're asking for this to be stopped. But that's the only as far as they will go. All those other people that now will become voting citizens, that will vote in line with their inferior values and will get you off track of the liberal way, that is more dangerous than the terrorist guy that you just stopped. That is more dangerous to your country than these terrorists, both because they're much higher in number, and actually not both, there's actually multiple reasons. They're much higher in number. They're going to use your democratic principle, your democratic way to basically change your politics. They're much more politically active, and they have inferior values. They have illiberal values. And also because a lot of people are not good. If you see a terrorist attack, an Islamic terrorist attack, it's easy for people to connect the dots. Oh, Islam, people died. Islam, explosion. Islam, a knife attack. Okay, here, I connect the dots. This was Islamic, that was the result. But if you have many people with inferior values coming in and changing the reason why your country has become great, many people are not going to be able to connect the dot to Islamism, from Islamism to, hey, I cannot pay my hospital bills. Or at least in Canada, I have to wait longer in line for seeing a doctor, for example. I mean, in Canada, you still have bills when it comes to healthcare, because you still have to pay for your medicine. Maybe the doctor is free, but you still have to pay for the prescription. And also, even if you don't have to pay for a doctor, you have to wait longer hours in line to get to see a doctor. And it will kill more people than terrorist attacks. That's what I'm saying. The stress, a lower quality of life will kill more people. And will leave you behind. It will make you progress slower. The sacrifices, the cost to that is much more significant than terrorist attacks. And people are not afraid of that because it's subtle. Even though the cost is greater, the explanation is complicated. The explanation for why Islamism is going to make you feel less safe, that is easy. People can relate to that. People, when they see terrorists, they were like, oh my God, yeah, that scares the crap out of me. Right? But if I tell you in the next 10 years or 20 years, your way of life is going to be challenged, you're like, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I don't know. Right? So it's hard to warn people about that. But anyways, let's go to the next video. And then I want us on this channel to have an understanding of what we mean by citizenship and why immigration threatens the value. If it's not done correctly, immigration, unfiltered mass migration, devalues the whole point of having a nation state, which is membership in a society. The meaning of that membership is being challenged. And if the meaning of because what is a nation state? A nation state is a membership of a people that refers to themselves as a nation with a state that manages and defends this membership, right? So if the meaning of that membership is challenged, the entire concept of your nation state is being challenged. Anyways, we will get to that in the last video, or maybe like one of the videos. Hold on. Let's look at this video.
Last week, Canadians were shocked and horrified to find out of a terrorist plot planned by a father and son who appear to have links to ISIS. Evidence exists that the father was involved in a horrific torture attack in an ISIS video. Shortly after the events in the video.
Wait, hold on. This is a comment that Alfred started for me to highlight. Alfred, please start more comments, especially if people are challenging me or have criticism for me, or asking me questions or something like that, right? So Crip here is saying, so your analogy is to just your analogy is just to justify a full ban. Wait a minute, where did I use an analogy? I made an argument. Did I use an analogy? So your analogy is to just to justify a full ban of Muslims entering Canada. You are so vile, Armin. When did I say that? Did I say that? Muslims. I didn't say. You mean Muslim countries? A full stop. Here's the thing. Actually, if you stop mass migration, you will be able to get to a point. I might be in favor of it if you do not have enough resources or the responsibility to or the know-how or the technology to individually check people to the point where you're not letting in people with inferior values, right? Then you should be able to even bring people from Muslim countries because you're doing enough of a background check on each and every single one of them. If you do not, if you keep failing, if you're letting ISIS in, for example, or a lot of people with backwards belief, like, I don't know, homophobic beliefs or misogynistic belief, or anti-democratic beliefs, or any other views that are incompatible, or anti-Semitic beliefs, any other beliefs that are incompatible with the liberal way of life. If you cannot individually filter for that, then maybe temporarily you should have a ban not on Muslims but on countries that have majority Muslim population until you could figure this shit out. But actually, if you stop mass migration, then you will get to a point where, because you don't have to allow so many people in, then you will actually have enough resources to individually check who you're letting in, including Muslims who actually are more liberal. I don't know, Crip, you know how embarrassing it is when you're saying things like, this is why you don't use your real name or picture, right? Probably. Because it's just so embarrassing that you come here and make arguments, and and because it's not associated with any real name, you don't have anything to. There's no consequences for having such insane takes. But I hope, and at least privately, you realize how stupid you are. Like I hope you feel embarrassed for these takes because you say things that I haven't said. Right? I am completely in favor of these Western liberal countries bring down migration to a point where they have enough resources that they could individually check people's cases, and allow in even Muslims who are more liberal minded, like Muslims who are not that Islam is liberal minded. Islam is always barbaric. Islam is always insane. Islam is always anti-woman. Islam is always anti-LGBT. Islam is always anti-Jewish. Islam is always anti-democratic. Islam is always misogynistic. So there is no hope for Islam. And anybody who thinks that they could reform Islam do not have any idea what they're talking about. They're insane. However, Muslims, so we don't have good Islam or bad Islam. All Islam is bad Islam. But we do have good Muslims and bad Muslims. And good Muslims are Muslims who are living less Islamic lives. So no, I do not think that we should have, maybe we should have a temporary ban on Muslim countries until we could figure this shit out. But I do want to get to a point. I mean, if it was up to me, which is not, I would want to get to a point where we have manageable migration, where we could even allow Muslims who are more liberal-minded, if they're skilled workers that we need. So let's say, for example, we're lacking engineers, right? A specific type of engineer. If a Muslim, if we have checked them enough and they are actually liberal-minded, they don't have bad views that is danger to our society. Yeah, a Muslim engineer, yeah, sure, let them in. I'm not opposed to that. But again, you are insane. Your mind is very simple. You cannot understand nuance, so you have to simplify what I'm saying. Like, again, what I'm saying, it requires a little bit of a complexity, a little bit of a nuanced thinking, but your mind is too simplistic, so it's hard for you to understand these details. Again, this is how you are, so I don't expect you to understand anything that I'm saying. Anyways, let's go back to so let's go watch this video one time.
Last week, Canadians were shocked and horrified to find out of a terrorist plot planned by a father and son who appear to have links to ISIS. Evidence exists that the father was involved in a horrific torture attack in an ISIS video. Shortly after the events in the video, this individual was admitted into Canada and later was granted citizenship by the Trudeau government. This is a colossal failure of Trudeau's national security system. Canadians have a right to know what went wrong. How did this individual gain entry into Canada and obtain Canadian citizenship? Canadians also have a right to know if there are anybody else, if there's anyone else in Canada with similar backgrounds who are granted entry into our country.
So guys, the audio is as loud as I can make it for this guy. You guys are saying the audio is low. Do you understand what he's saying? Is it loud enough for you to understand what he's saying, or are you just guys nitpicking?
My colleague, Frank Caputo, the acting public safety critic for the Conservative Party, has written a letter to Dominic LeBlanc, Minister of Public Safety, demanding that the details surrounding this foiled terrorist plot be made public so that Canadians can get answers. So today, Conservatives are calling on the Bloc and NDP to support our efforts to recall the Public Safety Committee so that we can investigate all the aspects of this disturbing and shocking event.
All right, so let me actually play.
We never be able.
Wait, stop. Okay, so this is a video. Just go back, to 2015. Okay, this was a debate between Harper and Trudeau. This is 2015, so 9 years ago. And this is when Trudeau was not yet the prime minister. And this was the debate between the two parties, the Conservative Party represented here by Harper, and the Trudeau Party represented, the Liberal Party represented by Trudeau, right? So listen carefully, and I want to have a serious discussion here because we need, on this channel, we have to understand what we're defending here, right? We're talking about the nature of citizenship, what it means to be a citizen of a country, especially these Western liberal countries that we're trying to defend. How do we define it, right? Is it the membership? Because when we're talking about a nation state, remember, nation state is just a made-up concept. It's a good made-up concept that has a lot of utility, but what is objectively real about all of this is us as individuals, us living beings. Like, a lot of these are stories that we tell each other to just make our lives better. Like the concept of a country, a nation state, a constitution, money, contracts, trade. These are all just part of the narrative world. Narratives, the stories that we tell each other so that we could have some standards to live by, right? But the part that is objective is our bodies, our lives. the food that we put in our mouths, the stress and anxiety, the happiness that we feel. These are part of, this is objectively stuff that is happening, right? So what grounds all of these stories to reality is us as individuals. So what is the most real thing about a nation state is the citizens, the people of a nation state, and maybe the geography, the land that we're standing on, right? But the whole point of this is our well-being. That's the whole point of us coming up with these stories, with these social contracts and whatnot, right? So we have come together and we have a story that we tell each other. So throughout history, we decide to tell each other stories so that we could work so that we could get together and work with each other and come up and achieve great things, right? Sometimes we tell religious stories with each other. Sometimes we tell each other stories about our nation states, or about money, or about contracts, or about business, okay? But this nation state is one of the most effective stories that we have told each other so that we could cooperate and work with each other. And it's all about membership. It's about who's in and who's out, what defines the criteria for you to be inside, be a member of this nation state, and what makes you outside. So if we don't get that right, if we don't have a well-defined understanding of who's in and who's out, the whole concept of a nation state becomes meaningless. And this is why this part of the debate between Harper and Trudeau is so significant, because it represents the challenge, the conflict in the past 200 years. We're trying to define this membership, what it really means. Is it based on ethnicity? Is it based on religion? Is it based on where you're born geographically? Or is it based on certain ideas that you have? Or is it based on nothing at all? Ever since the French Revolution, the modern liberal republicanism tradition has been trying to figure this out. And now we're seeing this being discussed here. So please understand, please pay attention. This video is only 1 minute long, and it represents all of that fight. So I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to play it. Let's listen to it together.
Are you seriously saying, Mr. Trudeau, will you never be able to revoke citizenship from somebody? No. Is that your position? No. Because we revoked the citizenship already of war criminals. And why would we not revoke the citizenship of people convicted of terrorist offenses against this country? This was a bill put forward. This was a bill put forward by a member of Parliament who is himself an immigrant, Devinder Shori. This is not the standards we expect. Immigrants, Canadians, all of us who are here expect that we would have a minimum bar, that people would not, people who come here would not be guilty of trying to plan terrorist attacks against this country.
A Canadian is a Canadian, and you devalue the citizenship of every Canadian in this place and in this country when you break down and make it conditional for anyone. We have the rule of law in this country, and you can't take away citizenship like what someone does.
The individual question, the individual question, Mr. Trudeau, is convicted of planning
should be
the most
in jail.
heinous
Okay, this is the most fascinating 1 minute of debates that I've seen in between the politicians, right? And I would like to break this down for you guys. I would like to break this, every second of this down. I mean, because technically they're both right and they're both wrong, right? And I think a lot of people, whichever side they're defending, a lot of times I listen to them and I think they don't understand what's at stake here and why they're defending their side. Because Trudeau is right when he says a citizen is a citizen is a citizen, and he accuses Harper of devaluing the citizenship, but he doesn't understand, and technically he's right, and I will tell you why. But he doesn't understand that his ideology and what he supports is the reason why somebody like Harper comes and says something like that. So let's go through explaining this, and I also want to see what you guys are thinking in the live chat. Guys, do you believe that, let's say for example, somebody has been granted citizenship of Canada or United States or the UK or Germany, right? And then they do a terrorist attack or they do something extremely vile, right? Should you now, that country, should they be able to go and strip their citizenship away? And if not, I mean, do you see, do you defend that, or are you against that, or are you torn? And if you're torn, why are you torn? Like, what is the benefit and what is the cost? What do you guys think? Do you think that if somebody has become a UK citizen and now you're seeing that they're a violent individual and they're a terrorist, should you, or like they're Islamists or whatever, should you be able to strip their citizenship away from them? Some people are saying, sure. Somebody's saying, yeah, revoke their. So Carl is saying, sure. Arthur is saying, yeah, revoke citizenship immediately. Yeah, and then deport. Okay, but do you see, if you support that, do you see the issue with that? What is, so Idris is saying, I wouldn't be against it. Basically, it's like an exile sentence. It existed in many democracies in the past. But Idris, you're missing something here. The problem with that is, you wouldn't be able to do that to the people who were born in the country and became citizens, right? So, for example, let's say person A is born in France. I'm saying France because Idris is from France. Let's say you're born in France, and your parents were born in France, and your grandparents were born in France, and you're a French citizen. That's a person A. Then person B came to France, and he's now a French citizen, right? So the person A, if they commit a terrorist attack, you can't take their citizenship away from them. But person B, you're saying what people like Harper are advocating here is that if person B commits a terrorist attack, for example, we should be able to strip their citizenship away from them. Do you understand what just happened here? If you do that, what is a very important liberal principle that we just violated here? Equality under the law. Basically, if you violate the equality under the law, you just created two-tier citizenship. And if you create two-tier citizen, because person A, if they commit a crime, their citizenship, the same crime, let's say, but they both committed the same crime. Now you have two responses to two kinds of citizen. So the kind of citizenship that person A has is different from the kind of citizenship that person B has, because the type of citizenship person A has cannot be taken away from them, but the type of citizenship person B has is one that can be taken away from them. And person A with the same crime, you cannot punish them in the same way that you could punish person B. That means there's two-tier citizenship, and there's two laws that apply differently to different kinds of citizens. So you're going to have two-tier citizenship. So when Trudeau is saying a citizen is a citizen, he's basically telling Harper that we want citizenship to mean one in Canada, the meaning of citizenship to be one thing. Because if you create two-tier citizenship, and if you create a situation when you don't have equality under the law, you're basically challenging the meaning of membership within your nation state. And that is, again, in an effort to fight a monster, you're creating your own monster, basically eroding the very principles that your society is founded upon, right? However, can you star some of the comments, Alfred? Because I want to see what people are saying about this. I want to respond to that. However, what Trudeau doesn't understand is the desire for us to have, a lot of people are now supporting stripping people's citizenship away, right? But if you want that, because eventually, if you have enough citizens with vile views, that demand is going to increase to the point where it has enough political capital for that to happen. So you cannot let in people with vile views, and then or people who are problematic to your country, and then ask your citizens, the citizens of your country, not to demand their citizenship being stripped away from them. If you wanted to, so the point of making sure that the citizenship is valued and it's all being treated equal should be before you let in these monsters in. You cannot allow these monsters in, and then ask people to respect citizenship as if they're all the same. It's your fault, Trudeau, that a citizen is not a citizen. There's people are seeing some people with legal citizenship, not actual citizens of the country, because you challenged it. Your demand for a citizen to be a citizen would be justified if you were extremely careful with who you let in. And this is why it's not Harper who is at fault here for citizens to be seen as two-tier. It's you who just opened the door to anybody with any fucking views. I understand, because I understand why it's important for a citizen to be a citizen. But I also understand that you cannot demand that from a society unless the membership in this nation state means something. What does it mean to be a Canadian? Does it mean nothing at all? Because is it based on geography? Well, I mean, if you're allowing in people that are born in other geographies to become citizens of your country, then it's not based on geography. Is it based on ethnicity? I'm sure you don't agree with that. Is it based on religion, as memberships had been in ancient times? Well, it's not based on that. Then what is it based on? Is it based on nothing at all? What is it? If it's based on nothing at all, then the membership means nothing at all. Then there is no membership. How could people feel a sense of belonging to a group that has no borders? Because there are two types of borders. There are physical, geographical borders, but also there are borders based on membership. Defining, there's two, as a Canadian, for example, there are two borders that you have to defend. It is the geographical border, and it's also the membership border. Who do we consider to be a Canadian? If you don't define that, then you don't have a border. Then you don't have a nation state. The membership means nothing at all. Why would I sacrifice? How would I define a sense of belonging or identity as a Canadian if there is no line? How am I supposed to feel a sense of like, oh yes, I'm a Canadian? What does that even mean? It means nothing at all. If the membership is not defined in any way, then it means nothing at all to be a Canadian. So with all of that in mind, let's listen to this one more time.
Are you seriously saying, Mr. Trudeau, will you never be able to revoke citizenship from somebody? No. Is that your position?
No.
Because we revoked the citizenship already of war criminals. And why would we not revoke the citizenship of people convicted of terrorist offenses against this country? This was a bill put forward.
So here's my position. I want a nation state to be in a position where citizenships are not revoked. But to be able to be in that position that Trudeau wants, where citizenships are not revoked, to be able to be in that position, then you have to be extremely strict about who you make a citizen. If you're just so generous with handing out citizenships, of course people would want to ask you to revoke citizenships. The only way that you could be demanding your country, you're asking your fellow Canadians to not revoke any citizenships, is if you were very careful about who you gave it to.
By a member of Parliament who is himself an immigrant, Devinder Shori, this is not the standards we expect. Immigrants, Canadians, all of us who are here expect that we would have a minimum bar, that people would not, people who come here would not be guilty of trying to plan terrorist attacks against this country.
A Canadian is a Canadian, and you devalue the citizenship of every Canadian in this place and in this country.
So yes, he has a point here, that if you can take away someone's citizenship away, then the whole citizenship of entire citizens of this country is devalued. being devalued. The concept of citizenship is being attacked if it can be revoked, right? But you are at fault, Trudeau, for this even being a conversation. You and the people in your camp are at fault for this even being a conversation that we need to be having.
When you break down and make it conditional for anyone. We have the rule of law in this country, and you can't take away citizenship just like when someone does.
Individual question.
Do that.
The individual question, Mr. Trudeau, is convicted of planning
should be
the most
in jail.
terrorist.
Okay. So let me actually see what you guys think. I want to see your opinions. No, not this one. So Levantic is saying what Armin says is that this is the tip of the iceberg. Yes, when an ISIS member is becoming a citizen, that means that the problem is so much bigger than just that one person. Because imagine somebody who comes and says like, hey, I'm anti-ISIS. Oh, fuck ISIS. I don't like them, right? But I'm anti-Israel. And, I wouldn't say it. I would say Zionists. But I mean Jews, like, oh, Zionists are evil. Technically, what I'm trying to say is, again, I'm YouTube, this is not my views, these are other people's views, right? That Jews are evil, but I don't want to say that, so I say Zionists. I'm homophobic. I'm anti-LGBT. Again, by LGBT, I don't mean the woke part of LGBT. I mean actual equal rights for LGBT. I'm against that. I'm a misogynist. I am against democracy. I support Sharia law. I'm not going to specifically say what I mean by support Sharia law because that would get too barbaric. I would just generally endorse Sharia law without getting specific about what it means. So, and I'm, and I will pledge allegiance when I'm with my citizenship. I will pass the test. I have all these views. But if you ask me, do I support violence? I would say no. I have all these backwards, barbaric, insane, ancient views, but no views that will make me not be able to get my citizenship, right? So if we are making this ISIS member a citizen and we cut that one, I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? What did we do here? That means the person that I just described, we have thousands and thousands of people just like this that have these views and we are making more of them citizens every day, and these people will eventually vote and will have their own political parties and will change the direction of this country. Even if they are 5% or 6% of the country. Anybody who understands how democracy works, especially one that is based on a parliamentary system, they understand that a 5% active bloc can completely change the direction of a country. Because that in especially in parliamentary systems like we have in Canada, smaller parties could make or break certain bills, and you need their support here or there to be able to do things, right? This means less support for Israel. This means less support for liberal values. This means that Canada will become a less reliable ally for other liberal countries when it comes to upholding liberal values across the planet. This means a whole bunch of other things, right? So you can see, like, for example, in the UK, how things are going, even with 8%, 6% of the population, 7% of the population being Muslim, right? So if you keep bringing people with illiberal values more and more as part of your demographic, then you're going to lose your way. And the people of Canada are going to suffer because of it. And again, that suffering is not as visible because you cannot see what you're losing. You cannot see what you're losing because if Canada would have been at point, I don't know, let's say, for example, they're at point 100 right now, and 10 years from now, they could have been at point 130. But because of these illiberal ways, 10 years from now, let's say they're at point 110. And we're like, oh, okay, so they went from 1 to 100 to 110. So that everything is fine. So a lot of people don't understand that if they had a more proper set of values within that was spread across its demographic, they would have been at 130 right now. So that opportunity cost that is not visible to people. That is so much death and misery. That's tears and loneliness, and people, like, I don't know. I'm gonna explain this at some point, how on my streams, how a country losing its way from the liberal path actually causes death and misery in much more dramatic ways than actually terrorism does, right? And again, it's invisible because it's hard for people to do an A/B test to see where they would have been if they didn't go down that path, and if they went down a more liberal and more superior path, right? So again, these are the things that we have to explain here, but it's hard to make people emotional about that, because it's easier to make people emotional about, oh my God, like I don't want an explosion to have to worry about explosions in my streets. I mean, that's justifiable. Obviously you should be concerned about that. But again, the bigger cost is harder to convince people how much they're losing over there. Let's go to this. Arthur is saying, but I think that most Muslims in Canada have been integrated successfully. No? Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, this is all relative. The problem is that many Muslims in Canada are noticing the quality of Muslims that are coming into Canada these days are actually not the same as they were before, because Canada is becoming more loose when it comes to their standards about who they let in. Some people who are anti-mass migration in Canada are actually Muslims, because they think that, they consider themselves, some of them consider themselves more liberal-minded Muslims, and they're noticing that the Muslims that are coming in Canada these days, some of them are like they're like, okay, these people are going to make us look bad. They're going to like, oh my, okay, so it's not all. Most Muslims in Canada have been integrated successfully, more than I would say more than France and UK. But to be fair, it's because there's an ocean between Canada and the Middle East. So just because of the mere fact of the Muslims who come to Canada have to at least be able to afford a plane ticket, that by itself is a filter by itself, right? That is going to get people who are somewhat more successful coming to Canada. But again, the main barrier is that the state is responsible for is to check people's values and make sure that they are not letting in people with backward values. And again, more recently, Canada has become a lot more open, and the quality of the people that are coming in value-wise, the standards are a lot lower than it was before. And again, the cost to that, I mean, this is why this story is a demonstration of that, right? They're so thirsty for migration that even ISIS members can not only get in but become citizens. Ahmed is saying most Muslims want Sharia law, but they don't ISIS. They want a group, but they don't want. I think there's a missing. I think the want is missing here. Ahmed is saying most Muslims want Sharia law, but they don't want ISIS. They want a group like Hamas or Muslim Brotherhood. To be fair, most Muslims, when you pin them, like, okay, so most Muslims are just like most other people, okay? They are more busy with their lives than to understand what they are even defending. Like, I mean, even if I go to an average Canadian and if I ask them, give me a list of Canadian values or Western values, or what do you think it means to be a Canadian, right? I mean, they're not going to be able to, on average. I mean, people are justifiably busy living, right? So they're not going to be able to explain that to you, right? So if I ask a Muslim, do you support Sharia law, with the understanding that Sharia law just means God's law, they're going to be like, yeah, sure, I support Sharia law. And then if I ask them, okay, what does that mean? You're not going to get that might be the first time they had to answer that question. They might have never thought about that. So most Muslims are like most people, like they haven't deeply thought about these things, right? They're busy with their lives, right? But again, the problem is it's not this black and white. right? The problem is that the Islamic mindset, on average, will make people that are suffering from Islam, right, less likely, just sometimes a little bit, sometimes a lot, to be in their views to be in line with liberal values, right? So when you look at, so our problem is with Islam and the carriers of Islam. So some Muslims are carrying this Islamic values less, some Muslims are carrying them more. But we're concerned, our concern is with just this ideology coming and spreading into our nation state. We're not interested in pinpointing individual Muslims and being like, you're the problem, right? I mean, every Muslim, we have Muslims that are very liberal minded, because they're, even though they're Muslim by name, the Islamic mind virus hasn't completely taken over their brain, right? It's like they're living mostly liberal lives. So what so it's a spectrum. But what we're saying is, what Muslims are bringing more Islam as an ideology into a nation, but we're not interested in condemning, going after individual Muslims and be like, oh, you're the problem, unless like somebody is a terrorist or freaking radical. We just think that in general, they are bringing, there's a wave of Islamism coming to Western liberal nation states, and there needs to be a much more limited, much more strict filtering of who we're allowing in. And also, we shouldn't be making excuses for this ideology. Like as a state of a Western liberal country, you either have to be promoting liberal values or be neutral. We could have that debate whether how much of a position the state itself should be taking in supporting an ideology, right? But the problem we have, so we could have a debate whether the state should be neutral itself and let us citizens fight against Islamic ideas, or the state itself should be promoting liberal values instead of having a neutral position. But the problem is that we don't have any of this. We actually have the state making excuses and sometimes even promoting Islamic ideology. You know, we had like Obama going into Congress reading the Quran. We had Biden reading the Hadith. We have Starmer coming out and mentioning that we have to fight against Islamophobia in UK. Trudeau is like the champion of making excuses and defending Islam. He has done more than all of these mentions that all of these people that I just mentioned, right? So we can't even begin to have a discussion whether the politicians within liberal Western nation states should have a neutral position or a promotion of liberal values position, when they're actually promoting or making excuses for the most illiberal ideas of them all, which is Islam. So what is this? Saying Armin, I worked at INS, US CIS, and US Intelligence, US State Department. No doing checks for visas. You mean not doing checks for visas, and US CBP and ICE not doing checks for those entering illegally. Okay. Well, maybe check your grammar before you post something, because I don't know what you're saying here. Something. Okay. I mean, I don't know. You're just one person. I don't know if what you're reporting to me is accurate, but I have to see a report or something. Renovatio is saying, here in Ireland, a 16-year-old ISIS supporter has just tried to end an Irish army chaplain. FEMS, MSM, and academics are now trying to claim the far right doesn't exist here, are the problem. The far right, which doesn't exist here, are the problem, and Islamophobia. Okay. Alfred, mainly start the questions if you can. Okay, so Sophist is saying, so this is in response to the citizenship, if it should be revoked or not, right? Say no, not think so. I think you mean no, I don't think so. It is not our problem. Bad people exist, should not be accepted in the first place. Now we need to try to integrate the person. So you're saying we shouldn't take their citizenship away, we should try to integrate them. I mean, if you're saying the problem is at the source, like the problem is that we shouldn't make people citizens who now we have to think about whether or not we should revoke their citizenship or not. The problem should have been like, how the hell did we allow this person to become a citizen? Like the problem in order for us not to revoke citizenship, we should have made these people not citizens to begin with. Renovatio is saying, yes, citizenship should be revoked. We also need what I call a UN-established neutral nation where everyone on Earth has citizenship, so all those who had their citizenship revoked can be sent. That is that's fantasy, basically. That's an unreasonable ask. That is what do you, I mean, yeah, that is guys, like when it comes to politics, it's not like you're not playing with putty, okay? You can't just like imagine things and then for them to come true. United Nations, you just turn United Nations into its own nation state by doing that. And whose land are you going to give them that? The whole point of United Nations is for it. The main point of United Nations is for every nation state to be able to maintain its independence and sovereignty. And now you're going to make United Nations itself into a nation state. And also, we also want United Nations where everyone on Earth has citizenship, so all those who had their citizenship revoked can be sent. Yeah, and so now United Nations is going to provide what? Is the United Nations going to have an army to defend that nation state and now provide services? Like, are they going to have? It's going to build them roads, and it's going to have their own government and judicial system, and healthcare and everything. So United Nations just becomes a country. And how are we going to? Who's going to give them which land? Whose land are we going to give them? No, this is not a serious solution. The cat lady is saying, also, what about children of criminals? Will they stay citizens if the parents is revoked? That's problematic. Yeah, I mean, the problem is that we shouldn't have the problem is that we shouldn't have to deal with this. Like Trudeau is saying, like, a citizen is a citizen is a citizen, but look what you have done. Like, you have brought us a situation that now we're kind of stuck. You have made the revoking of citizenship now a serious discussion by making an ISIS member a citizen. So who devalued the citizenship, Trudeau? You told us that Harper devalued the citizenship. You devalued the Canadian citizenship by making an ISIS member a citizen. You devalued it. The fact that this is even a conversation that we need to be having is your fault. You and the people that you represent. ACO is saying another issue is that ruling political party countries to change the definition of terrorism. Another issue is that ruling political party continues to change the definition of terrorism. That's why screening naturalized citizenship needs to be screened beforehand. Okay. And then we have this comment. Arthur is saying in 20 years, they're going to be 15-20%. I mean, that's not the predictions I've seen. Guys, if it gets to 10%, it's already, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to say anymore. Like, 10% is already insanely high. And this is what it's looking like the UK and France is going to get to that. But 10%, like, people think, yeah, because they're a minority, this is not going to be an issue. If 1 out of every 10 people in your country is a Muslim, then you are fucked. Like, I don't even know how at that point. The only hope you have is to basically try to make these Muslims less Islamic, or to make more, like, then I know this seems like a self-promotion, and it might be, it is actually. Then your only hope is the ex-Muslim movement. Like, you guys, if you want to defend Western liberal nation states, then you have to basically look at the ex-Muslim movement and try to promote them as much as possible. That's the only thing you have going for you after that. Animation is just becoming a YouTube member. Well, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. I know you were a member before. For welcome back, so thank you so much for that. And then we have Mary Alex. Thank you so much for the super sticker, and it's a rose. I think it's a rose. I don't know my flowers. It looks like a rose. Is it a rose? Yes. Well, thank you so much, Mary, for the rose. All right, guys, make sure you like the stream. It's important that you like the stream. Guys, I see like 260 people are watching us on Twitter. I need you guys to come and subscribe to us on YouTube, Atheist Republic YouTube. Guys, please promote this channel. I am trying to go, again, I know this is a little bit boring for some of you guys, but I'm trying to, while I'm reviewing these videos, I'm also trying to talk about the foundational principles that we're defending here, and basically talking about the theory behind what we are for, because it's easy to show people what we're against, because we're against Islamism, and illiberal values, and to point to that and say that we're against that is easy. But I am on purpose making an effort to also show you what we're defending, and the explanation of that requires you guys to be a little bit patient. But it's also pointing to Islam and saying like, oh, that's horrible. That's easier to do than what I'm doing here. And if you appreciate that, please let me know in the comments and say, yes, Armin, please explain these concepts. We need to know not what we're just against, but also what we're defending. And if you think there's any value in me explaining these in detail, please let me know in the comments, because I do read the comments. And your feedback actually does help me direct my shows in a better way. So like the stream, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell notification, leave a comment after the show is over. Leaving a comment really grows this channel. And please, please, please advertise this channel. Go and tell people, come and subscribe to Atheist Republic on YouTube. Okay. Anyways, till next show. Bye. Stay liberal.